creators. It's still a new technology, but we're figuring it out. Today, we are going to be talking about a wonderful Deep Space Nine post-canon piece called The Disjoining, written by the fantastic KJGooding. Now, this is a piece based after the main narrative of the TV show Star Trek Deep Space Nine ended and involves the family unit of Ezri Dax, Julian Bashir, and an OC named Rali. Now, OCs, or original characters in fandom and fan fiction, are usually characters that have been created in universe by the author, and they usually function in the same way transient or recurring characters are used in the original media that the fan fiction is based on. So speaking of fantastic, interesting characters, let's talk to KJGooding and get a little bit of background.
Hi there. I'm excited to talk about this story with you today.
Well, welcome. I'm glad to have you. So a little bit of background on you. How long have you been writing fan fiction in general? And how long have you been writing fan fiction for the Deep Space Nine fandom specifically?
Sure. I've been writing fan fiction in general since I want to say about 2005, which I was probably too young to be doing, but it was a way that I built community and a way that I expressed, emotions that I didn't really get to in day-to-day life. And then DS9 I started writing for in 2015, I believe, maybe 14, somewhere around there.
Wonderful. And did you do a lot of fiction writing before entering fandom and fan fiction, or was fan fiction sort of your gateway into writing fiction?
I had been writing original fiction before. Like I said, I think that's always just the way that I kind of cauterize emotion and expression. But none of my original works were successful. I mean, I didn't really finish anything beyond really simple stories in like first and second grade. Fan fiction was easier for me because I feel like I already knew the characters and I could create a dialogue with readers instead of just with characters.
Awesome. Well, that is fantastic. Well, that's wonderful to know. And speaking of creating a dialogue, we did put your characters from The Disjoining into the character development machine before we started, and it looks like we're ready to go. It's fully charged, and today we are going to get to speak to your iteration of Rali. So let's bring in your OC Trill character, Rali. Hello.
Everyone, this is Rali. She's my original character. I just wanted to introduce you before we start. I know not everyone likes original characters. You might think that they're flat, they don't really add anything to the story. But as you've just seen, they can bring a perspective that maybe the original show wasn't capable of giving us. Rali, for example, she's half human, half Trill. She says she's looking forward to joining someday, and she wants to ask some questions. She is hearing but nonverbal, so sign language is most comfortable for her to use when she's not communicating with the Trill symbionts she takes care of. Go ahead, Rali, what questions do you have for me? Why did you make such a radical change to one of the main characters, Ezri? That's an excellent question. When I first set out to do this story, in my head it was a lot shorter. It was a pretty typical post-canon piece, the stuff where Julian figures out his feelings, finally goes to live with Garrick, and helps him rebuild. At that time, I was aware of two prevalent criticisms of Ezri that exist in the fandom. One, people say she's a poor replacement for Jadzia, or two, she gets in the way of Garrick and Bashir having a relationship. I was guilty of thinking both those things myself when I started, but I realized I didn't have a good reason for those opinions. They're just misogynistic at their core. They didn't give any credit to Ezri as an individual or any personality. So that's what I challenged myself to do. I wanted to make her a compelling character with her own strengths. Of course, I was also continuing her relationship with Julian where the series left it, and I have to admit I fell in love with her just as quickly as he did. It became clear to me that this wasn't just going to be a story about Garrick and Bashir living happily ever after on Cardassia. It was going to be equally, if not more, about Ezri and Dax finding their individuality. I made the decision to separate them in order to explore that, because we know it's a surgery Julian can perform, so why not? We just had to get them there. So what this story does is physically separates Ezri and Dax and allows us to really dive into their separate characters. They come to a lot of realizations along the way before they make that huge decision. They have to realize those differences because they're both outsiders in Trill culture, right? I know it was before I was born, but it doesn't sound as friendly or tight-knit. No, it wasn't. The series doesn't tell us very much about Trill culture, but all that we see is symbionts being forced into hosts without any break in between, even if they just experienced a traumatic death in the previous body. And then we know that Dax has always been maybe a bit of a troublemaker, and your mother didn't want to be joined in the first place, which puts her at a physical disadvantage, but a really critical emotional advantage. She agreed to join to Dax in order to save its life. I think she would come to see it as a patient, a friend, and then finally an important element of her family tree. The story is the first step in her taking a few steps backward and finding herself as an individual, who she was before she joined, because she kind of forgot with this flood of memories coming in from Dax. And then she learns who she can become after learning from it. I wanted to explore how their relationship could change. And of course, we have Julian there to hold it all together and make sure everyone involved is safe and healthy. I think it's a perfect arrangement. Is my parents' relationship really unusual? It always seemed just right to me. Well, it is just right for you. I hope we see more loving, supportive, polyamorous relationships in the future, even if we never make contact with all these amazing aliens. I would say very few of my stories center on cis-het allo setups, which are so ingrained in traditional media. It is starting to change, but not as quickly as I want it to. The best thing that someone can say to me is that they learned something new from my stories. They saw a new type of romantic relationship, or they learned about gender pronouns they'd never heard before, something like that. It's important for me to write about these unique family arrangements because I feel like it's something I struggle with myself in real life. And in the middle of it all, we have your two humanoid parents, Julian and Ezri, who find that they don't really work in the usual romantic sense. But that doesn't do anything to diminish their deep connection or their ability to succeed in raising you. Yes, that's where I come in. I have some idea of what my parents were like from communicating with Dax, but I want your side of the story. Tell me about me. Yes, you. I'm so grateful for you. I feel proud of you as if you were my own child, and I guess in a way you are. At first, it was the same process where I made a conventional choice and then I challenged myself. This series has been full of that and really rewarding for me as a writer. I want my work to be mindful and inspirational in helping us make progress as a society. So while I was writing this, I was leaning really heavily into Julian's point of view. And we know that he keeps these charts of how relationships should go. So I think once he and Ezri got together, marriage and having a child were just the next milestones for him on that chart. But then I realized, oh, this could be really great for the plot. We could find a way for Dax to communicate without speaking through Ezri. And I kept that up after you were born because I thought it was fascinating. What could I do creating this new species who's used to getting all her information silently, instantly, symbiotically, without ever being joined herself? And I knew I had a very important opportunity in front of me. I could create meaningful, realistic representation for autistic girls. You were so loved by your parents even before you were born. I want you to know that. And it isn't something a lot of autistic girls can relate to. Being misdiagnosed or diagnosed later in life or not at all is still really common in our time. Giving you parents who loved you and understand you and want to do everything they can to help you reach your full potential felt so incredibly cathartic to me. And watching you grow up through the series, hearing from readers how much they enjoyed you or how much comfort you gave to them if they had a similar childhood as you or I did, just wow. I never expected you to become such a big part of this story or of my life, but I'm glad that you did. Our story is all about love, isn't it? It's comforting. It's nice. It certainly is, and all different kinds of love, too. DS9 gave us a rich cast of characters and dynamic relationships and action and drama, but I wanted to let it breathe. Everyone needed to recover and rest. So I focused on every different kind of love that I could think of, especially the ones that I love and don't see in traditional media. Things like mentoring, taking time to let yourself heal, meeting an old friend, accepting their new identity, going home after many years away, making a home of your own, helping others, finding a voice for those who don't have one, or trusting each other enough to sit down and enjoy the silence. And what your parents do best, my favorite kind of love, is making accommodations for those you care about. It just says, I know you, I know what will make this easier for you, I want you to succeed, and I'm going to help you, no questions asked. That's what it's all about. I don't do these action-packed plots. I like to slow down and really understand what each character is getting out of every interaction and how they're progressing along their own emotional arc. A common theme in your writing is having two different scenes or conversations happening at the same time. Why do you think that is? I think that's just how I see the world. It's something we can illustrate really well with Trill symbionts because they have all these lifetimes to pull from at once, as well as the Bajoran prophets who don't experience linear time. I'm always trying to relate what's happening to something from my past, something I heard from a friend. It's just the easiest way for me to make sense of what's going on around me. So in this story and many others, I make themes and sometimes the moral of the story clear with this technique. You have two conversations going on at once, or a character pulling from a memory to solve the problem right in front of them. I use lots of gentle repetition and tying things together because I think that's what life is. It's not always nonstop action. I like to pause, make the connections, and see my characters use those to make emotional progress. Thank you. I learned a lot. Is it okay to communicate this to the symbionts I care for? Oh, please do. It's been so nice to see you. You're welcome. Take care and tell the whole family hello.
And with that, I have to say, Raleigh, how did you know your time was coming to a close? It's the whole perception without being told things, isn't it?
Yeah, that symbiotic interference is really strong. Don't you love it?
Well, with that, we do have to say goodbye, but it was so wonderful to meet you, Raleigh. And thank you so much for being here, KJ.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been amazing to get to talk to my character like that.
Well, I'm glad. I know it's a strange experience, but we so appreciate you volunteering.
Thank you.
And with that, our episode concludes. So thank you so much for listening to Fans Fix It. We will be back next time to give you yet another author and give them a chance to talk to another version of one of our beloved characters from fanfiction. If you would like to read more of KJ Gooding's work, you can find them on Archive of Our Own. K is in kangaroo, J as in jumping jack, Gooding, like good job, ING. So, and we have links in the description to their work and our social media. You can always like and subscribe if you would like to see more episodes. And you can find us on Twitter at fansfixit, FANSFICSIT, and on Anchor, on YouTube, and we can just see you around the internet.